Everyone, welcome to this particular episode of Debo's Den. Today I'm actually going to be talking about something that is probably one of the most important messages that you might hear in your life. Like seriously, one of the most important messages about money and wealth that you would hear in your life. However, before I go into today's message, please, I'd like you to subscribe for Debo's Den. Subscribe and then also hit the bell button for notifications for when a new episode of Debo's Den comes out. So please go ahead, subscribe and hit the bell button. So now, looking forward to talking to you about today's episode, money and wealth. So as I said, today I'll be talking about something that is probably the most important thing. And I'm not exaggerating. You know, a lot of us live our lives and we want to be comfortable. We want, to be able to buy vehicles, buy houses, buy clothes, buy jewelry, and buy things for our loved ones and all. So all of this requires a medium of exchange. The thing is though, there's actually something that people use interchangeably. People interchange money and wealth. In fact, many people think and use it in such a way that it means one and the same thing. Actually, what I want to say today is that money is different from wealth. And I'm actually going to make some recommendations and explain to you why money is different from wealth and which one you actually should chase. Now, here's the thing, and I love saying here's the thing, just so that you can focus. Money is actually a medium of exchange. So something that you can use to trade between one person and the other. That's what money is. And so if you read books like The Advent of Money or The History of Money, some of you probably already know that before money was invented really in terms of fiat, i.e. currency or even coins, it was actually barter. So basically you had, say, 10 tubers of yams, and then you could exchange your 10 tubers of yam for 10, bunches of bananas or whatever that thing is. And that's what used to happen then. And then you had barter systems. Over time, it became that you could actually use a piece of paper or a coin that is backed by, some government or something strong to say, or some institution to say that you can exchange, in this case, your tubers of yam, in exchange for that piece of paper or that coin, or you could exchange your bananas for that piece of paper or that coin. And that's when currency actually came to be. But as I said, that's actually money. And there's a difference between money and wealth. So in terms of definitions, and I was just explaining, money is just a means of exchange. That's it. No more, no less. There can be other definitions and all that. And for the economists and co that have standard definitions, this is really more about keeping it simple and keeping it real for the people listening to me. And that's money. So the question then becomes, what is wealth? I'm going to use, again, my own simple definition of what wealth is. Wealth is the engine that generates money. Now, note that there are two different things. And this is probably why many people use this interchangeably. Wealth is different from money. Money, on the other hand, means of exchange. Wealth, on the other hand, actually means the engine that generates the money. And so, naturally, advice to anyone listening to, whoever is listening to this episode of Debo's Den. Wealth, money which one would you take? Answer the quiz and we'll be right back. So, money can actually buy you a fancy car. Money can actually buy you a Range Rover, Range Rover 2022 edition. And that is something that money can actually buy. Wealth, on the other hand, can buy you a Range Rover 2022, a Range Rover 3032 or 2032, a Range Rover 2042, a Range Rover 2052, a Range Rover 2062, depending on how long God says that you're going to live on earth or how long you live your life. So you notice something just from this very simple definition. Money is something that is actually temporary. It's really about exchange. So it's there or it's gone. Wealth, on the other hand, is the engine that continuously generates money. And this is actually what you should be chasing. So tip one, note one, focus on wealth and not on money. Now here's why I keep saying that focus on wealth and not on money. Here, you see, if you had cash, say $100,000, and it was right there in your house, the reality is that heaven forbid something happens and thieves come into your house. If they come in and they take that $100,000 bag or $100,000 in currency that you have in your house, what has happened is that the money has gotten lost. Now, this is the tip that I want you to remember. Money can be stolen, but wealth cannot be stolen. Again, remember that money is a medium of exchange. Wealth is the engine that brings money. So the fact that you have money lying around, you have a $100,000 watch, or you have a $100,000, bag, or a car, or $1 million car, or $1 million home, and all that. The reality is that even when those things get stolen, as long as you have that engine that creates money, you are wealthy. And so something that is very important to note, money can be stolen, but wealth cannot be stolen. Now, because of these things that I've just mentioned, another fact also becomes clear. The reality is that those who chase money end up being poor. However, those who chase wealth enjoy their lives. And it's for a simple reason. When you're chasing money, get cash or die quick, or get cash quick, do it now, do it now. What usually happens is that you are after the cash itself and just the money. And literally, even if you do get it, what ends up happening is that you burn through it so quickly that you end up becoming poor. Now, sadly, statistics show that many people who actually win the lottery burn through it very quickly and they actually end up poor. Not everyone, but many who do. And the reason is simple. That person usually does not know how to actually invest or do the right things in an engine that creates money. Instead, depending on where they are or who they are, what they end up doing is buying different things that maybe satisfies their desires, okay, but doesn't actually generate cash. For example, and I know some people will disagree on some of these things, but for example, a car, as much as it's useful and nice to have and all that, actually usually doesn't generate money on its own. I hear you. Some people will argue that having a certain kind of car shows a certain type of lifestyle and gives you access to certain places. True, depending on who and what you do and where you are. And if it is your job to go out every single day to enter into places and close deals, you know what? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The reality is that if you're going to have to rely on a car, to close deals and create wealth, then maybe you really aren't wealthy. Maybe you're actually rich. Now, again, if someone has plenty of money, they're defined as rich. If someone has an engine that can create lots of money over time, they are wealthy. I've talked about money, I've talked about wealth. If you have plenty of money, you're rich, but you may not be wealthy. If you have the engine that creates money, you're rich and you are wealthy. So again, note, very, very importantly, what life has shown, data, statistics, everything, is that those who chase money end up being poor, and those who chase wealth enjoy their life. So this brings me to this particular tip, or I would say maybe even a saying. People who are wealthy may not have a lot of money, but they have investments that will generate enough money for whatever it is that they need. So this actually is very, very important to note. And this is a fact. Those who are wealthy, they don't necessarily have lots of money to actually throw around. However, they have invested in engines, and I'm actually going to come back and talk about what to do later on. But they've actually invested in engines that create money. Don't forget, I'm going to keep on repeating this throughout this episode of Debo's Den. Wealth is the engine that creates money. And so keep on focusing on the engine that creates money. Again, I keep saying that, if you are wealthy, it means that even if you stop working, or so whether it's like you've been working on a job and say you stop working, your wealth is going to create and generate enough money for you to even be okay and live a good enough lifestyle. And you know why earlier on when I said, wealth can help you buy, a 2022 Range Rover, a 2032 Range Rover, a 2042 Range Rover, what happens is that wealth actually continues to generate money. That engine keeps on churning out money and creating money for you as an individual and even for your unborn children. So basically, for you and everyone listening, if what you're doing is chasing money, it means that you're just doing it for yourself. If on the other hand, you want something that can take care of you, that can take care of your family, that can take care of generations of yours, yet unborn, then please, my brother, my sister, please chase wealth. Chase wealth, and I'm going to share with you later on how to chase wealth. So, how do you actually chase wealth? And how do you create wealth? Well, I'm going to tell you a few tips and share a few things about this. First of all, the very, very first one, and I think that's even the most important, it's about the right mindset. Now, I'm going to say something, and some people may think, some may agree with me or some may not agree with me. But the thing is, psychologists say that based on your mindset and what you're thinking about or how you're thinking about things, there's a certain way that things get attracted to you. And it's just something about the mind, or even just the way God has made us, that when we want to do certain things, we are able to attract a different set of things that help us to actually achieve those things. So let me give an example. Right now, I am shooting this particular episode of Debo's Den in Nigeria, and a lot of Nigerians complain a lot, and that's the truth. But here's the problem with complaining. When all you do is complain and see the negative side of things or negativity, what happens is that your brain centers around, and I guess the experts and psychologists have, released different reports. But what they do say is that your brain secretes certain things, and that basically it only allows you to see those things you're complaining about, and you don't actually see a solution. And so if you want to create wealth, the reality is that there are lots of problems out there. So whether in Nigeria, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in America, in South America, in Australasia, even if you live in Iceland, for those that do, basically there are problems everywhere. So if all you're doing is complaining, you're gonna have a problem creating wealth, because wealth is actually an engine. Remember I said it's an engine that creates money. And don't forget, an engine is something that is going at force. It's going against the norm. It's actually doing something that is like leveraging energy and leveraging force. So it means that it's going against the norm. It's pushing against something. So if you want to actually create wealth, the very first thing you need to do is change your mindset. And when I say change your mindset, it's really about not just acknowledging. You need to first of all acknowledge that yes, there are problems. And I'm not saying forget about your problems. No, I'm not a motivational speaker or anything like that. What I am saying though is acknowledge your problems, but look for ways to make sure that you're actually looking at problems and looking at them in the right way for you to use that engine to create money that helps you. So tip one again, change your mindset. Now, the very second one, you've probably heard this before, and there are lots of proponents that are actually talking about it. If you want to create wealth, the second thing that you need to do is invest in your own financial education. Invest in your own financial literacy. And when we say invest, it's really just investing, whether it is time or investing money or investing some kind of way that you're actually taking some time to learn. Now, investing in education, personally, I remember way back when, and a very good friend of mine, actually my former boss, reminded me of this, of something I did 20 years ago. So 20 plus years ago, I joined KPMG, the international accounting and audit firm. And they used to have this thing then where you can actually talk about any topic that you really want to. And it was usually, I don't remember if it was once a month or once in 2 weeks, thereabouts. But basically, we would walk in, they would select people, you have some time to prepare your presentation, and then basically, based on that presentation, you then talk and all what have you. I remember, he reminded me that my presentation was actually around a book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And it's a book that some of you may have read. I hope as many people have read it. And it really talked about how people created wealth from years gone by. This book was written a long time ago, and it was written about ancient times. That's if you haven't read it, please go look for that book, Richest Man in Babylon. And that was one of the things that helped me on my way to really focusing on wealth. I stumbled along the way and made mistakes, right? But again, it was more around everything focused on wealth and not money. It made me understand that difference between wealth and money. So for me, taking the time to actually read books. And by the way, I need to recommend some to you. So please make sure you read this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. I also would recommend to you Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it talks a bit about some of the things I've even mentioned here today. Mentality, having the right mindset. I've spoken about that in the other tip, but having the right mindset. And very importantly, as I said, investing in your education. Talking about education and all. GFA, for example, Get Funded Africa, the company that I run, actually has a learning and development platform just for people like you and I as well, where we actually learn different things around developing a business, fundraising, technology, and things like that. And this actually is going to go into the next tip that I'll talk about. So please, if you can, visit our website, remzana.getfundedafrica.com, view some of the courses there, and make sure to take those courses. And again, I cannot emphasize enough, to create wealth, invest in your own financial education. Now, the third point, and this is actually critical, it's really about the engine. Remember I said that wealth, an engine that continuously creates money, right? That's why I said wealth is an engine that continuously creates money. If you're going to create wealth, obviously, the obvious thing to anyone is that it's either you create your own engine of wealth or you invest in an engine of wealth. Let me talk about the latter. Now, one of the things rich people have recognized, or rich and wealthy people have recognized over the years, is that companies that are doing very, very well, they put in their money and buy a particular percentage or a stake in that company. Over time, some of those companies that are doing well have been grouped together, under an umbrella or have some kind of regulation covering them. So for example, in the US, you have NASDAQ. So it's a group of tech companies that are growing and doing pretty well and all that. Well, hopefully they're doing pretty well. You have the New York Stock Exchange, you have the London Stock Exchange, you have the Tokyo Stock Exchange, you have the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and you have, the Toronto Exchange. And so pretty much in Africa as well, you have, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, you have the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, you have the one in Cairo, you have the one in Morocco, you have the one in Ghana. So pretty much in every country, or in most countries, there's usually a stock exchange where people that want to create wealth, what are they doing? They are investing in engines that have been developed by other people to actually create what? Wealth. They are investing their own resources in other people's engines because those engines are already up and running, and so they literally buy a stake in those people's engines that is going to create wealth for those owners of the engine, and also by extension create wealth for those people that are investing in those engines. Companies are like the bedrock of every economy, and this is why you hear politicians everywhere saying, small businesses or startups are the engine room of development. They are saying it already. Small businesses are the engine rooms of development. Small businesses, you go to America, you hear the people saying, small businesses are the engine rooms of development. These days, that word has changed from small business to startups, okay? Startups are the engine rooms of development. Think about it. Microsoft is one of the world's largest organizations today. Microsoft started from, a very small room. Same for Facebook. Same for Google. Just mention the 100 largest companies in the world. All these started from small businesses. Today you have the FANG stocks. I've mentioned this. If it's in the Americas, Facebook, Alphabet, Netflix, Apple, and those likes. From China, I mentioned in the last episode of Debo's Den about the BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and several others like JD, Suning, Kuaishou that are just around the world. And if it's in Japan, you have several large organizations, Sony, Nintendo, just to mention some of them. And it's the same thing everywhere. These small businesses are those that have the ability to scale and grow and become the engine room of development in the countries in which they are. So that's the second part about creating or investing in an engine of development. If you are a startup, or if you have the ability to create a startup, you are technically creating a potential engine of development, and you're able to attract people to yourself that can help you in growing your engine, because those people feel that if your engine works, it works for you as the founder, and by extension, it works for those investors that have invested in you. And this is why it's important to note, Either, if you want to create wealth, it is either you start your own engine of development or your own engine that creates money, or invest in people who have created their own engines to create money. Note again, there's a difference between money and wealth. Money, it's temporary. It can be stolen. It can be lost. Wealth cannot be stolen. It cannot be lost, except you do something stupid. And in addition, it's just very, very important that we focus on wealth. Invest in someone else's engine or create your own engine. So there you have it, the difference between money and wealth from my view. Now, just important to note, and just before I close, I should say that I would like as many people as possible to be wealthy. This is something that, seriously though, we need more and more and more wealthy people across the African continent. We currently have, as estimates go, 1.4 billion people on the African continent. Our company, Get Funded Africa, is actually focused on enabling African startups, enabling entrepreneurs, enabling people that are going to create engines to actually develop the Africa of our dreams. Enabling organizations that will start up, that would actually form engines to solve the problems in society, to solve the problems in healthcare, to solve the problems in infrastructure, and so many other things. So please, please, and please, as an individual, whatever it is that you're doing, if you can start your own engine that helps your society, please do. If on the other hand, it's not something that maybe is in your immediate skill set or in your immediate purview today, please support startups that are trying to develop engines to solve problems. So that's a wrap for this edition of Debo's Den. I hope you have enjoyed it. I did say to you that this was very, very important, and probably even one of the most important episodes or things or comments that you're going to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to Debo's Den and hit the bell button such that whenever a new episode of Debo's Den comes out, you are notified. Thank you and enjoy yourself.